Hi, this is Brett from La Colombe Coffee Roasters, and I just wanted to make a short video to go over how to prepare everything for our virtual coffee cupping. So you should all have your 4 samples. We're going to put those in order, A through D. This is going to be a blind cupping, and we're going to reveal what coffees we got at some point during the tasting. We're going to need a cup for each coffee, so 4 cups. And right here is an example of a cupping bowl. Most of us probably don't have these, but you can use any sort of assortment of cups. With a cupping bowl, we usually put in 12 grams of coffee, and the bowl is a certain size where we can fill it right to the top. Now, if you have 4 matching cups, that'll make this easier because you could use that method. But if you don't, what we're going to do is we're going to figure out how much coffee will fit in the smallest cup that we have. And we're just going to go by that weight of coffee and water that we add, and any of the bigger cups will just have a little bit of extra room. I'll come back around and go over how to figure that out and how to grind your coffee. The other thing you want to make sure that you have are some spoons. This is a cupping spoon, an example of a cupping spoon. It's basically kind of like your basic soup or dessert spoon, but in a pinch, any type of spoon will do. We're just going to want to make sure that we have 2 spoons available. I'd also recommend getting your kettle of hot water ready. Stovetop kettle is fine, doesn't have to be an electric one like this. And when we actually pour the water, we want it to be just off of boiling. So you don't have to have it at a rolling boil, but just have it, hot so that we can make the most of the time during the cupping. And then last couple things, obviously, you're going to want to have the grinder that you grind your coffee with. The scale that I already used to weigh everything out, and it's nice to have something to write with. It doesn't have to be a full-on notebook. A scrap piece of paper will work just fine. All right, so in just a moment I'll be back and I'll get into how to pick how much coffee to put in your cups and how to grind it. So as I said, we want to weigh out the coffee that we put in each of our cupping bowls. We want them all to have the same amount. And ultimately what we're going to want to do is have a certain ratio of coffee and water in each bowl. So if we start with too much coffee in the bowl, then we're not going to be able to fit all the water that we need. So like I said, if you want to make this really easy, if you want to make sure that all of your cups can hold at least 240 milliliters, then you can just put 12 grams in each one. You can weigh out 12 grams. But if you have smaller cups that like this and they all match and you want to use those, this is how you figure out how much your cup holds and then how much to put in it. So what I do is I just like to put the cup on the scale, tear it out, and then just fill it with water. And just fill it up as close to the top as you can. I fit 192 in here. In this case, I already knew that this fit about 190. And so to figure out how much of the ground coffee I want in here, I would just divide this number by 20. And if we round to 190, I end up with 9.5. So I'm going to put 9.5 grams of coffee in each cup. Now, if you get some weird number like, 10.21, you can just round to 10, or, if you get 11.6, you can round to 11.5. So just to the nearest half gram is going to be fine. This doesn't need to be super exacting. Okay, now that I figured out that in my case, I'm going to be putting 9.5 grams of coffee in each of my cups, I like to just sort of go down the line and weigh them out, tear each cup out, and then add the sample from each one, making sure not to mix up the samples. Once I have them all weighed out like this, that's when I'll go and grind each one. Now, what I recommend doing is, once you've ground coffee A, take a little, handful like this from your tube of coffee B, run that through the grinder, and then toss that out. That's just going to purge out whatever was left of coffee A. Then grind your 9.5, or for you it might be 12 or another number, but grind your coffee, put it in the bowl, and then just work your way down the line. And once you've done that, you'll basically be ready. So the only other question you might have is, where to set the grinder. So I'll come back in just a moment and do my best to explain that. So talking about how to grind your coffee, how coarse or fine to grind it. It's really difficult to communicate. It's totally okay because cupping is a very forgiving way to brew and taste coffee, but we basically want to go for something medium, something maybe around drip, maybe a little coarser, definitely finer than French press. So I've got a little coffee here. You can take a look. And what I recommend doing is just taking, little palmfuls of the coffee and throwing it through the coffee grinder, look at it, see if it's sort of this rough texture, and if it looks too fine, adjust a few notches. If it looks too coarse, go a few notches finer. Just play around with it until you get something that looks like this. One last thing that I almost forgot to mention, in addition to your 4 cupping bowls or cups for the coffee, it'll be good to have 2 more cups or glasses, and one with some water. And it is not going to be a palate cleanser. We're going to need a cup of water for rinsing our spoon in between tasting, and the other one's nice to have for a step that we will learn about during the tasting. Anything in this preparation seems complicated, or you're worried about messing anything up, don't worry about it. The more we can get done ahead of time, the better. But worst case scenario, we will meet up on Monday and I'll be able to go over any questions you might have. Looking forward to tasting coffee with everyone. Thanks.